Zagreus sits inside your head. Zagreus lives among the dead. Zagreus sees you in your bed and eats you when you're sleeping. Zagreus, the 50th Big Finish main range Doctor Who release, first released in 3 extended parts across CD and download on the 21st of November 2003 and written by Alan Barnes and Gary Russell. The 3 parts are titled Wonderland, Heartland and Wasteland. And this effectively brings me to, well, a partial end at least, for my Doctor Who Big Finish kind of research. I mean, from this point on, the first 50 stories are available to listen to on Spotify, but I think for the rest of them, I will have to start paying to actually support Big Finish, as they are a legitimate business, and to listen to more stories. But this one seemed particularly big because it's the 50th story, and it practically includes almost everyone in the Big Finish team, as well as a lot of returning Doctor Who cast members. So it follows on from the 8th Doctor story, Neverland, and it shows that the Doctor is going through a bit of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type scenario, as his mind has been partially taken over by the Time Lord being Zagreus, who's working for Rassilon, played once again by Don Warrington. And the Doctor has to try and find a way to kind of defeat Rassilon, stop Zagreus, and ultimately get his mind back. Meanwhile, his companion, Charlie Pollard, voiced once again by India Fisher, finds herself kind of navigating a mysterious land that almost seems Wonderlandish, as she encounters robots, giant mice, and various people, including the Reverend Matthew Townsend, played by Peter Davison, Lord Tepesh, played by Colin Baker, and Walter Winkle, the owner of a kind of robotic theme park, played by Sylvester McCoy. They also encounter several returning characters on the way, including Romana, once again voiced by Lala Ward, and Leela, voiced by Louise Jameson, and K9, voiced once again by John Leeson. Now, Charlie and the Doctor are partially guided by the TARDIS, which ends up taking on the form, or presenting a form, of the Brigadier, once again voiced by Nicholas Courtney. However, it soon transpires throughout the series that the TARDIS has grown bitter against the Doctor, because while the Doctor says that he does love the TARDIS and everything, it's shown that he has been willing to kind of give it up or put it in danger in order to kind of save Charlie, whom he has grown to care for very deeply. And having the TARDIS, voiced by Nicholas Courtney, kind of arguing with him about it, it does make for some rather interesting storylines. But as I said, this story included practically everyone. I mean, as I said, it had Paul McGann, it had India Fisher, it had Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Lala Ward, Louise Jameson, Don Warrington, Nicholas Courtney, as well as a ton of others, including Annika Wills, Elizabeth Sladen, Mark Strickson, Sarah Sutton, Nicola Bryant, Caroline Morris, Maggie Staples, Bonnie Langford, Robert Jezik, Sophie Aldred, and Lisa Bowerman. All of them in this one story, and to be honest, only a fraction of them are actually playing the characters that they did in the show. Those mainly being Paul McGann, Lala Ward, Louise Jameson, and co. They even somehow managed to get in John Pertwee. Now, I personally thought this was a little bit weird because I knew that Big Finish audio dramas for Doctor Who started really in 1999. And this was a little weird because, looked up, John Pertwee passed away in May 1996. So it was just like, hang on a minute, how did it end? But it turns out that he didn't actually record lines specific for this. This was originally lines of dialogue recorded for a Doctor Who event called Devious, that I think was supposed to kind of fill in the blanks between the War Games and Spearhead from Space. But honestly, this particular story, it's mad. It goes big, it goes bombastic, and there are some parts of it that work, some parts of it that are a bit weird to listen to. I mean, just listening to each of the kind of various Doctor actors playing different characters is weird enough. But then later on, they do kind of have to come together to actually show they are still the Doctor and fight back against Zagreus, or when Paul McGann becomes Zagreus. Overall, I think this is a story that it's pointless for me to try and explain it because it is just so mad. It is just one of those stories that you're just going to have to listen to and make your own opinions on it. But considering this is one of the big events, Doctor Who Big Finish stories, I think it's well worth a listen to. But while that's the end of my quick little review of Zagreus, it also means that, for the time being at least, I've run out of Big Finish to listen to. I mean, I do know there's a ton more Big Finish stories, but there are ones that you eventually do have to shell out for. And I will be prepared to do that when the time comes. And ultimately, I started listening to Big Finish last year. I had tried previous times to listen to it, and I couldn't get into it. I finally started last year, put some effort into it, and you know what? I'm glad that I have listened to Big Finish for so long. I do have my favourite stories, and I have done a ranking and chosen out my top 10, which I might do another video on later on, okay, saying my top 10 Big Finish stories, at least in the main range. But hopefully one day I will shell out to listen to some more of the Big Finish stories, because I do legitimately want to listen to them. Like at the end of this one, it shows that the Doctor kind of having a little bit of an argument with Charlie, and saying that while he does want her to stay with him, she needs to understand that she can't really. Like he'll leave her with the Time Lords, they'll return her home, and he has got to go practically into anti-time, because he knows that while they managed to defeat Zagreus and all the rest of it, he knows that he's got to face his consequences. To which Charlie begs to stay with him, but it's seemingly ending on a sad note, until we hear a small conversation between Romana and Leela, to which Leela asks Romana, "Did you ever find out the TARDIS has a back door?" And it's shown that while the Doctor believes he is alone aboard his TARDIS, Charlie has snuck back aboard, and it's shown they are going to have more adventures together. And I do want to hear more of them. I want to hear more stories of the 8th Doctor and Charlie. I want to hear more stories from the 8th Doctor and Lucy Miller in the series of the 8th Doctor adventures. I want to hear how the 6th Doctor manages to patch things up with Evelyn Smythe. Even some of the newer ones. I want to hear the 10th Doctor's adventures with the 4th Doctor. I want to hear him paired back up with Ace and Leela for a story. I even want the stories with the 9th Doctor and the Brigadier facing off against the Cybermen. I do want to hear these stories. It will take time, but for the time being, I'm drawing a close to this particular chapter of Big Finish, but I do legitimately want to hear more, because I was sceptical going in, but I have grown to love Doctor Who Big Finish. As I said, I'll do a ranking later on of my top 10 stories, at least in the first 50 stories of Big Finish main range, but I advise you check out Zagreus, and I can't wait in the future to hear more of Big Finish stories. Anyway, that's my quick little review of Zagreus and how excited I am to enjoy more Big Finish later on in my life. Anyway, till next time, see ya.